So Vaidheesh, let's just pick up on some of the things that both Satish and Yogesh said. Is that maybe that some of these is an evolution that people aren't trained enough. Maybe there aren't enough people. But in an emerging market like India, there are so many sectors which are so anew that people are suffering from lack of training and lack of skill set across them. Many years ago, when HDFC Bank started out, there were no private sector bankers. It was all public sector. They had to evolve this through training processes, right? Kishore Biani many years ago told me that he used to recruit waiters from hotels because there were no people with retail experience. So this is a managerial challenge. Many companies like GSK have dealt with it, maybe have dealt with data integrity issues. So what's the MNC experience? Are these guys maybe just not investing enough in people, training, and maybe has the growth been much faster than growth in processes?
Well, I want to say that the Indian companies or the companies in emerging market are not investing.
No, I want to know the GSK experience. So because you've seen this evolution where you're first-time entrants in many markets, you're suffering from lack of a talent pool, you're probably putting in the processes, the resources, and yet you've got to maintain global benchmarks. Yeah,
absolutely. You need to remember there are some of these companies like GSK has been in this world for the last 300 years. Okay, so you need to take. There is a residual knowledge and wisdom exists in some of these companies.
We don't want to wait till Satish is 300.
So, what tends to happen is that, there is an assumption that even GSK does not have a problem. Even we do have problem. Something similar to what all other companies have, or most of the companies have the problem. Because you need to remember, the regulators, they keep raising the standard. The only advantage with companies like GSK, for example, we have voluntarily do certain remediation measures. We know very well that at a point of time where your standards that you have been using is no longer going to be acceptable to the changing. So voluntarily we stop production of supplies, not stop in a sense, more or less an intermittent production of supplies, and invest in technology and get out of it. Now, to that extent, we do get affected in terms of supplies. You must have heard about, for example, vaccines. We had a huge supply issue for the last year because we were trying to improve certain processes, technology, and there's a big short supply. Same thing that we had a problem with our own factories where we, on our own, we did a remediation. One of the things that we talked about, data integrity as an issue, when people keep talking about, I think these are all very cultural issues. As an example, in India, people, when they sign a document, they don't even date it. Forget about at the lower level people. Even at the senior level, people don't date it. It's actually data integrity problem, right? And then people bring it back and then say, no, I'll put a back date. Now, those are all considered as, now it's a very common cultural issue. Now, as and when the FDA starts looking at all this stuff, hey, guys, now suddenly I understand that you guys are backdating now, that's data integrity issue. Then they start going into this series of things. Now, you are absolutely right. There is a huge amount of training is required. There are people who come from different walks of life. Probably we need to take more time in spending on some of the basic hygiene issues of getting them to understand what it means to be in a pharma industry. I'm quite sure that many of our big companies are doing it. I'm not saying. But companies like GSK also face that kind of issues in emerging markets. Except the fact we do more or less voluntarily, huge amount of training that we do. Sometimes I wonder, when I was in Nashik plant, somebody says, why you guys are spending so much of money on one of our facility, huge amount of money. Other companies don't do it. But the fact of the matter is other companies will do it another 1 year's time. Right? So the question of anticipating some issues and putting in advance, in line with the changing requirement. FDA will continue to change, as everybody knows, as and when more Indian products are going to US, the consumers there are demanding high quality, right? So now they are going to say it's going to be similar to what you do in the United States. So they are going to raise the standard. We are going to see more and more challenges coming up. So provided we start anticipating and start putting efforts and resources behind it.
Yeah. So it sounds as if Indian companies would almost be better off if they invested 105 instead of 100. Probably over-invested. Processes, talent, people, skills, and of course equipment, right? Just as you're anticipating the problem and probably predating the solution.
That's what I presume, but I'm quite sure other companies are also doing it. It's just my sense of that.
Sure. So let's move to a more global picture, Ranjit, and let's start with you here. There's been a big change in the leaderboard in pharma. If you look at the world today, of the top 10 largest selling drugs in the United States, 7 are in biologics. Is there a change in the leaderboard? Is the paradigm of pharma shifting to a different direction? Just big picture thoughts on this, and then we'll come down to what Indian companies are doing and understand that a little better.
I think very broadly, what is in patent today will be generic tomorrow. That's very clear. And generics, in a way, was kind of commoditized. So companies are looking at within generics what is up the totem pole in terms of value and profitability. So biologics clearly is an area where there is great potential. I mean, if you take diabetes, insulin, I mean, over $400 billion worth of this is drugs are made in this area. Now that's a huge potential if somebody is able to make an equivalent biologic with the right kind of framework and specifications. The thing with biologics, of course, is it has to be a true biologic, It can't be a diluted specification of biologics. And this is where we need to be very clear, because finally it's in the interest of the patient and consumer safety. So this is an area which it's not everybody's game, let's put it this way. But companies which are doing it are spot on, certainly will do well, and the patients will benefit as well. But it's a great opportunity overall.
Are you seeing your R&D spend moving greater towards biologics as Novartis worldwide?
So first of all, Novartis is the second largest generic company in the world after Teva. So clearly biologics is one very important element of the strategy. And Sandoz, which is Novartis Generics, is working in that area. We have some approvals already. So certainly that's the direction we're working at as well.
In India, Rajeev, we're hearing pretty much the same things with even the younger entrants, that we want to be in niches, we want to be in complex generics, difficult to manufacture products. Everybody seems to be saying the same thing. It's not so much biologics, but everybody wants niches and complex products. If everybody does that, how do they ever become niches? They're crowded niches then.
I think when you start up a product, you believe it's a niche, but I think 7 out of 10 times you find out it's not a niche. So, but you don't have a crystal ball to tell you it's not a niche until you file it and then litigate it or go through the filing process. You will not know whether it's a niche or not. So the game is like this. I mean, you gotta have a business instinct which says I'm going to do about 8 or 10 of these niches, of which half of them will fall apart, but I think the 2 or 3 will deliver, and that will pay for the 7 failures and more. So that's how the business works. So, but I think if you do consistently about 8 or 10 of these really smart products, you can't be wrong on everything. I always believe that. You can't be wrong on everything, then that's just bad luck.
So you're playing the probabilities.
Yeah, you play the probability, but there's a method to the madness. It's not just lottery at all. I will never say it's lottery. And sometimes, you suddenly get into a shortage situation, or sometimes you get into some of your competitors don't supply, or somebody doesn't file. Everybody thinks everybody else is going to file, and suddenly nobody files. You don't know how it actually plays out, and sometimes you get lucky. So, but the game is you got to keep trying, and that's how it works.